104 games have been played between the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Tennessee Volunteers. It's one of college football's most storied rivalries. But rivalry may not be the best word to describe this series in recent years, as Alabama has won the last 15 matchups. And while Tennessee has come close a couple of times, namely in 2009, the Tide has rolled through the rest of this current streak, winning 13 of those 15 matchups by 2 or more scores. This year's version of the third Saturday in October feels different, though. Tennessee enters the game undefeated for the first time since 1998, the same year the Vols won their last national championship. And Josh Heupel's group has already exercised one demon earlier this season, taking down Florida in Knoxville and snapping that streak. So why not snap another streak while they're at it?
Won't take it anymore.
Everybody knows who's coming to town and the opportunity that we have, so looking forward to that.
But a 16th win over Tennessee sounds pretty good to Alabama. And on paper, the Tide has all the advantages. A better quarterback, running back, receiving core, defense, and of course, head coach. Nick Saban has yet to lose to Tennessee as Alabama's man in charge, but the GOAT is well aware that this game is not played on paper.
This is a really, really good team, a real challenge for us, and we got to get it right ourselves so that we do a better job of putting ourselves in position of having a chance to be successful, and when we do that, we got to take advantage of it.
They say streaks are meant to be broken. We'll find out Saturday on Rocky Top on CBS.
The third Saturday in October, a heated rivalry no matter how lopsided the series may be. For 15 straight years, Alabama's been breaking out the post-game stogies, but Tennessee with its best chance in years to light them up and send that streak up in smoke. It's the big SEC Game of the Week on CBS, and two of our guys here to break it down, Wes Rucker and Travis Reier. Guys, some real playoff implications here, and I'm not sure the last time we've said that and actually meant it at the season midpoint for Tennessee. Obviously, the Tide knows how to show up on the big stage, but Wes, how ready are the Vols for this moment?
I think we're about to find out. I think having a 24-year-old quarterback who's playing at a high level certainly helps. But, as good as Travis is as a Bama insider, you don't have to be an expert to know that Bama's played in this kind of game quite a bit. Tennessee has really not lately. Tennessee plays in a big stadium. Certainly there's a lot of media, a lot of hype around Tennessee all the time, but playing a game in October with this much on it, that's pretty much uncharted territory for these Tennessee players. So what kind of a mindset do they have? Are they ready for the moment? Because regardless of the outcome of the game, I think Alabama's going to be ready to play. Alabama's not going to be fazed by what's around it. So Tennessee's got to go out there and do the same thing. And if not, it's going to be hard for Tennessee to win this game.
Well, there's no doubt, Wes. Alabama has certainly been in this type of game many, many times before in the Nick Saban era, but Alabama on the road hasn't exactly been dominant here in the last season plus. So need to clean up the mistakes from some performances at Arkansas, but even more recently at home last Saturday night, finishing -3 in turnover margin and still being able to squeak out that win over the Aggies with the backup quarterback, Jalen Milroe, in the game. I just don't think you can take that type of performance on the road again this week and hope to be 3-0 in that regard by the finish of Saturday's game.
Well, if Milroe is the guy to start, he'll be leaning on a star running back for some help, Jahmyr Gibbs. We know how much he excels once he reaches the second level. However, it may be hard to get there against this Tennessee front. The Vols' rushing defense, one of the best in the country, holding opponents to 2.8 yards a carry and 89 rush yards a game. Travis, which side of the ball has the edge here?
Yeah, Jahmyr's averaging 8.3 yards per carry. So when you look at Tennessee's defensive improvement against the run, it's right there for you in black and white. But, Jahmyr, a different type of challenge, I think, for the Tennessee defense. Last year, Brian Robinson, that was very much a phone booth type of approach to the run game. Alabama was effective on the ground in that game against Tennessee last year, rushing for 200 yards. Bryce Young was a big part of that, too, from the quarterback position. But whereas Brian's a very good back and a guy that can really control the game, Alabama was able to hold on to the football for 40 minutes in that game in Tuscaloosa last year. They like to get Jameer into wide open spaces. In his last 5 quarters, he's rushed for 301 yards. A lot of that in the fourth quarter against Arkansas, a lot of that in the first 3 quarters against Texas A&M last week. And they seem like they found a bit of a rhythm with some of the new pieces on that offensive line. Seth McLaughlin jumped in there the last 2 games, very effective at center. But they need Jameer to be big, not only in terms of explosive plays, but can they finish drives in the red zone like they did a year ago with Brian Robinson and Bryce Young?
There's a lot of really good points there, Travis. And I'll tell you one more is that this is interesting because when Jahmyr Gibbs was in the transfer portal, Tennessee for a while thought it was going to get him. And then Alabama kind of came in and drank their milkshake on that one. So, that's it's an interesting subplot. There's always kind of recruiting plots in games like this too. But, Tennessee, Travis made a really good point there. Tennessee's run defense, the numbers in black and white, they are a lot better. I don't know how many backs they've seen quite like Gibbs, though, because normally if you want to go north and south on Tennessee, they're fine with that all day long because every time you're handing it off, you are not throwing it. And when you're throwing it, Tennessee tends to have a lot of problems. But Gibbs is a different kind of back. They're going to get him in space. They're going to get the ball to him, swing the ball out to him a little bit, do some of that screen game, some of those quick game things that they do. And Tennessee's defense in space is still where some of the problems are. So if you want to go, student body right, student body left, I think Tennessee's fine with that. They'll take that all day. They like their defensive front, and they should. It's a good group, and the linebackers are pretty good in that regard too. But Alabama is going to want to get this game in space. LSU last week, offensive line's not the same, but I believe it was 19 yards on 12 carries for the running backs there. So if you want to go north and south, Tennessee's all about that action. But if you want to go into space, that's where Tennessee struggles a little bit, and that's going to be a key for me. Is this game going to be in a phone booth? Or can Alabama's offense get it out in space?
Well, speaking of north to south, let's talk about what these offenses might look like because there are a couple of situations to watch in terms of injuries. If Bryce Young plays, there's no guarantee he'll be 100% with that shoulder injury. As for Tennessee, we know Hendon Hooker is the engine behind the most productive offense in the country, but of course he'd love to have his top receiver back in the fold. Wes, start us off here. What can we expect to see from these offenses?
I think you'll probably see Cedric Tillman play. I wouldn't guarantee that as we're sitting here right now, but once he had that tightrope ankle surgery, that was something where they were hoping that by Alabama he would be good to go. And he's a ferociously hard worker. He's not going to be saving himself for next year. He wants to play in this game, so we'll see if he's able to do that. Of course, Tennessee has still gotten about a million and a half yards of offense the past couple of weeks without him. But it hadn't played a defense like Alabama's either. I think we need to be honest about that. Florida and LSU, some decent defenses at times. They're not what Alabama has, and neither one of them has Will Anderson. Will Andersons are hard to come by. So Tennessee's offensive line's been absolutely outstanding all year long. This is going to be the biggest test it's had to this point. If Tennessee can hold up front and Hendon Hooker can have a little bit of time to work, I think you're going to see Hendon Hooker do what he's been doing, which is be one of the best players in college football. If they kind of get Hendon Hooker off balance, get him off platform, rattle him a little bit. It's hard to rattle him, but if they can force some things from him, we'll see. He's got about 50 touchdowns and 2 picks since he's been Tennessee's starting quarterback, which is just ridiculous when you sit there and look at those numbers. But then again, this is a different kind of challenge. So will Tennessee hold up front? Will Tillman be out there? Will Hooker be what he's normally been? Will Jabari Small get anything done on the ground? There's a lot of questions that I think we're all really interested to see on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, and just on the other side of that with Bryce Young and his potential availability, I haven't heard anything to this point in the week that leads me to believe he isn't going to give it a go Saturday. So I'll be surprised if it isn't Bryce Young. And if it is, even if it is, how much do they expose him to certain situations? Last year in the game against Tennessee, he had 2 rushing touchdowns too. So that's a big part of his game, and that's basically how he was injured on an extended play and, got out to the sideline and just sort of banged his shoulder. So how much can he protect himself? I think that's something that Nick Saban has to take into account. We're not that far removed from the Tua Tagovailoa situation at Alabama either. So that guy right there would help. Jahmyr Gibbs, no doubt, if you can hand it off and do that with him. But protection has to be good, and a big part of that's Tyler Steen, who has gone against Tennessee 3 times. Those 3 times were at Vanderbilt. So third Saturday in October might be a little bit different for the veteran left tackle than the fourth Saturday in November, Wes.
All right, Travis and Wes, thanks so much. Going to be an electric game day out there at Neyland Stadium. For more coverage on this game and coverage on the Tide and Vols all season long, check out Bama Online and GoVols247.